chaos is a choice. And you're like, no, Todd, you don't understand these customers I'm dealing with. You don't understand my people, these subcontractors, these projects I'm working on. Well, if you're the business owner, who's hiring these people? And who's not training these people? Who's selecting these customers? Who's signing contracts? I've never had a client put a gun to my head and force me to do something. Chaos is a choice. Welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd Dawalt. I'm your host. I'm here with Leyah Hostetter, our Director of Customer Success, and Monish Khadye, all the way from Australia. He runs our CEO Alliance program. And here at Construction Leading Edge, we're all about helping construction business owners have more freedom, more impact, and more wealth by systematizing your construction business. Think self-managing company, a business that runs without you. Today, we're going to be talking about the pitfalls to avoid when scaling a construction business, okay? The pitfalls you want to avoid if you plan to scale your construction business. There are lots of people out there telling you, do this, do that, sometimes giving conflicting advice. So we're going to share what not to do if you want to scale your business, if you want to increase profits, if you want to make it run without you, or all of the above. So we've worked with hundreds of construction business owners over the past 6 or 8 years. And we talk to construction business owners every week, and there are a lot of common pitfalls that people are stepping into. So quick preview of what we're going to cover: how ramping up your marketing and lead generation without the right structure to execute the work will backfire. Well, you want to avoid that. Talk about 2 fundamentally different approaches to designing a business, and we'll talk about the one that doesn't work, that too many people are using. There's a trap that 90% of construction companies step into. It looks like such a great idea, but they're stuck in it, and it causes chaos and profit bleeds, and they don't even know that they're in this trap. And we'll talk about a myth that keeps a lot of small businesses stuck in a cycle and keeps them small. So let's jump into it and start talking about the pitfalls to avoid if you want to scale your construction business. And leading off the list is the first pitfall, which sounds something like, we're going to start by ramping up marketing and lead generation. We want to scale the business, so let's start by ramping up our marketing. We just need more leads. And a lot of people believe that their problem is they don't have enough leads, and they think that more leads will solve their revenue problems, it will solve their profit problems, so they invest in marketing first, thinking that's the fastest way to grow, right? Seems like the right thing to do. Let's start at the front end. What happens, Leyah? What happens when somebody starts with lead generation and marketing without having the right structure in place to deliver the work?
What kind of an experience will your customers have when they come to you through this marketing? You're out there trying to find clients, you're investing in marketing, people start calling you, but you don't have anything to support that. What kind of an experience is that customer going to have? And what kind of reputation are you going to have because of that? It doesn't work. It's kind of the idea of putting the cart before the horse. I often call this like front of stage and behind the scenes. If you don't have the behind the scenes figured out, if you don't have that system and process in place, you really don't have too much to offer to a customer when they come to you, because it's going to be extremely flawed. It's basically going to reinforce what everyone says about construction. It's a pain in the butt. It's always behind. I have to come up with more money. There's this lack of trust in the industry, and it's because of this. It's because we're out there finding clients, we're out there finding job, but we aren't set up effectively to be able to actually serve them in a way that's going to be a good thing for them and for you.
If you start with marketing, that means you have to come up with some message. You're going to go out there, you're going to have some message. We do this, and you're going to, in essence, make promises, and you're going to write checks that you can't necessarily cash because you are actually creating a big disconnect between what you promised and what you can actually deliver. And we've seen this in a lot of cases. And I think a lot of people who have done this would say, we would have been better off not to get these people into bring these people into our business, because now they're mad, they're pissed off, we made promises we couldn't deliver on, they had a bad experience. And now they're telling everybody, and they're never going to forget this bad experience that we had. So the other thing that happens, other than we're creating unhappy customers, is if you have a machine that's not running efficiently and you put more demand on it, that doesn't make it run better, right? Those efficiencies only get amplified. It's sort of like if you have a truck that's not running right, it's missing on one or two cylinders. This would be sort of like saying, all right, we're going to fix it by hooking it up to a trailer. We're going to put a load of lumber on this truck, and that's going to solve it. No, it doesn't work that way. That makes it worse. So when there's chaos, when there are inefficiencies, that chaos grows exponentially as you push more work through it. You have more customers, have more staff, more projects, more people having bad experience. It just amplifies the chaos. And from a customer experience, Leyah, what are some of the ripple effects of signing up customers, signing contracts, getting them into contracts and working with them, and not being able to deliver on your promises? What are some of the ripple effects that happen there?
I think we've all experienced this to some degree in some capacity. We've been that customer who has expected something from someone and we haven't gotten it. And how does that go? We're not happy about it. And do you tell people? You absolutely tell people. People, I forget the statistics right off the top of my mind, but you are more likely to tell a lot more people about a negative experience than you are about a positive experience. And in having worked for home builders with certain customers that are not happy with the experience that they had, that headache just never seems to go away. You are always going to be playing catch up with that particular client. And it doesn't matter how much money, time, effort you throw at that. It doesn't go away. There's no way you can make that right after you've invested in something that you were never prepared to deliver on. So it becomes a negative for you. It becomes a negative for your customer. It becomes a negative for your reputation. None of these things are a positive. Getting a lot of clients, that's awesome, but not if you're ready for them. Not if you don't have the capacity and the systems and the processes to be able to deliver on what it is that you're promising.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think, what do I got to do to get customers? And the real question is, what do I got to do to be able to deliver for those customers? What do I have to do to be able to sustain those customers long term? That probably leads us into the second strategy that I would say 90% of construction businesses try. It's human nature. It seems like such a great idea. There are contracts that are created to enable this type of behavior, and it's doing just enough to start, and then we'll figure out the rest as we go. We'll fast track this project. And what I've heard is people will say, well, we've got to get this project started. We told the customer we could get started in 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever. We set this expectation with the customer. So we got to get the project started. We got to get out there. We got to start making some noise. We got to show some progress. Or it's we have to get this project started so we can get to the revenue because we need it for cash flow purposes, or we've got to keep the guys busy. So they do just enough to get started, and then we'll figure out the rest of that stuff later. So I've seen this on small projects. I actually spent about 15 months working on a $30 million office building that did just enough to start. Looking back on it, it was absolutely crazy. And it was chaos for 15 months of chaos on a $30 million project. And it was because the client and the broker and the developer were doing just enough to get started. So it happens on a big scale, but it also happens in small businesses. Monish, you've had a lot of experience. You had your own business. You've worked with a lot of our clients, worked with the CEO Alliance guys. Why do you think the just enough to start trap is so tasty? Why does it look so appealing? Why do people do it?
What we've seen through majority of our clients, if not all of them, is that the best source for leads, quality leads and clients is referrals. So they've gone through and tried all these different ad things and mixed results. The best source is always referrals. So keeping that in mind, when people come back to this whole just enough to start thing, the reason it's tempting is because if they've got someone on the hook, let's say, they're like, I'm going to do everything to get this job. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to agree to everything this client's saying. And we've all had these problem clients that we probably should have never taken on to begin with, but we've said yes. And then it becomes a reputation thing. It's like, all right, I can't let these guys down. I can't say to them, hey, we need to take 2 more weeks to figure these things out, to plan properly, to place our orders, to buy the job out, etc. You just say, yeah, I'll start tomorrow because you want the job done by Christmas or whatever the case. And what that does is just turns it into a series of miscommunication, confusion, just errors in judgment. And the entire project, whether that's the owner of the business themselves involved in or your team, whoever's involved has to be reactive. And then we have a lot of people in construction who believe that they're tougher and more resilient than the general population will say things like, well, I perform better under pressure. I perform better under stress. And so, they start convincing themselves that the just enough to start mentality is actually better for them, or they're better for that, and they get better results. But it's simply not true. Like it's just not possible that if you were to bake a cake, for example, and you didn't have all the ingredients, you didn't have all the equipment, and you're just, as it's happening, you're just making stuff work. You're not going to end up with the best cake that you could have if you had taken the time to prepare everything. Everything's laid out. The cake's probably a bit of salty from your tears that you've shed while baking it halfway through. And we've seen that on projects as well, right? Like people get to the end of the projects and they're glad that it's finally over because they feel like they were stuck in it. And then they just do it again. They just do it again and again. And so instead, we've seen with our clients that have understood the importance of pre-planning, taking that time to get into the driver's seat and saying to the client and the designers, the architects, whoever else, that there's only 80% of the information here that we need to go through with this project. We need to figure out the remaining 20%. Otherwise, we're going to be figuring this out on the fly, and one decision may affect several others. There might be a domino effect. And this is how you end up with change orders and delays, contractual issues, all that sort of stuff. Whereas if before the first time you start on a project, everything's ironed out as much as possible, reasonably. Look, there's always latent conditions, but as long as everything's ironed out, then just build. You don't have to, during building, also help people make decisions. Also try and procure materials. Also try and solve, problems. So the project itself goes a lot smoother. And it goes a lot smoother from the perspective of the clients, the architects, whoever else. And as Leyah was saying, things go well, and that's what adds to your future pipeline.
I think it's kind of almost a badge of honor in the industry for folks to be running in that chaos and constantly putting out fires. No one likes it, but so many people fall into that trap. So many people are, you hear this is just how it is. It doesn't have to be that way though. And I think something that we often will hear too is, well, that it can't be done in my area. My area is different. My business is different. Things are different here, but it's not. It literally just is a matter of planning versus not planning.
So let's talk about the ripple effects. Some people might be thinking, that sounds familiar. I think I might be dealing with this. What are the symptoms of it? So let's just run through a few of these symptoms of the just enough to start trap. There are profit bleeds. So rework, scope gaps that pop up. You end up eating the cost of things. You end up giving away work. You have allowances that get reconciled late in the game. And there are arguments about who should have covered this and how much it should cost. They're like fire drill starts out of a project where there's lots of noise and people running around trying to get things started. That's a symptom of the just enough to start. Crash landings of projects. All the cans get kicked down the road to the end of the project. So it's just chaos, reactive mode everywhere. Everybody's in reactive mode all the time. Lots of firefighting. Any other symptoms that I missed there, Monish?
To add to that as well, the contractors that are doing time and material or cost plus, they think that this is the safe way to go, and it doesn't matter if we haven't planned because the customer at the end of the day is going to pay for it anyway. What often happens though is when the projects run in a chaotic manner and at the end, the costs blow out by, let's say, 20% to the client. All of a sudden, the client doesn't want to pay that. And you think you're going to get paid and money's not coming in. And the client's going, no, I don't feel I should be paying for that because that was your issue. You should have picked that up 2 months ago or whatever. And then you end up in a legal brawl where you're trying to get paid for work that you've already done and probably paid to your subs or whoever else. And so even in those circumstances, people don't end up making the margin or the profit that they should. In most cases, from what we've seen objectively, the guys that are involved in that whole just enough to start mentality are barely making their own salary as the owner of the business. The business is simply not profitable because there's just so much room for error. I mean, yeah, like you said, profitability, missing materials, guys on site standing around because they're not sure what to work on and how to solve certain issues. And it all adds up, the whole death by 1,000 cuts.
That's a myth. That's maybe a sacred cow myth that we're not going to have time to get into today, but the cost plus is the safe way. You can lose money on a cost plus contract. Now that sounds counterintuitive, but you can. You can lose money on a cost plus contract. If you're a custom home builder, if you're a remodeler, it's like, yeah, we'll just do whatever you want. I'm reminded of one of our clients, Michael Algren he built enormous luxury homes in the mountains, maybe Utah or Colorado, Park City, Utah. And he talked about this multi-millionaire wanted to build a $20 million house, all T&M. And it was just constant chaos. So T&M.
Remodel. $20 million remodel.
Okay. And it was chaos and it burned him out and it was just enough to start. So I think there are some underlying beliefs here that need to be identified that we touched on a little bit. I think it's like busy is good. If I talk to somebody in construction, they'll say, you guys staying busy? Are you busy? Like busy is a good thing. I think one of the biggest lies that needs to be broken or reversed about construction is chaos, right? I've heard this so many times. People are like, well, construction's chaotic, as if it's just like gravity, construction's chaos. So we're dealing with the stuff. And that's just not true. It doesn't have to be that way. The truth is, this may piss some people off, but chaos is a choice. Chaos is a choice. And you're like, no, Todd, you don't understand these customers I'm dealing with. You don't understand my people, these subcontractors, these projects I'm working on. If you're the business owner, who's hiring these people and who's not training these people, who's selecting these customers, who's signing contracts? I've never had a client put a gun to my head and force me to do something, right? These subcontractors, you're dealing with them, you're hiring them. So chaos is a choice. Construction is not chaotic. That's not a fact. It's not like gravity. Chaos is a choice. And I think that's one of the underlying beliefs that keeps people stuck in this. Are there any other underlying belief patterns you think that lead to this, to people doing just enough to start? Maybe it's just laziness. It's like, well, I only want to do as little as possible, so we'll figure out the rest of it later. Monish, what do you think? Are there other underlying beliefs or mindsets that lead people to this?
If you were to kind of go a bit deeper on the just enough to start mentality, it applies to your business model itself as well. And we've seen that with, again, clients that have gone through this were targeting, as an example, these clients were targeting bathrooms and smaller remodel jobs simply to keep their employees busy, right? So, and it was this mentality where it's like, yeah, I'm just going to bid these jobs for now to fill up this gap in our schedule, and then I'll eventually land a bigger job. But you're not doing anything to land that bigger job, right? And you're not set up to take on bigger jobs because your team's used to bathrooms. You then end up falling in that trap where it's just a constant cycle of all right, I just need to win this one job, keep the team busy, then I can go work on the business. I just need to fill out next month, then I can go on the business. So there's a bit of that going on as well. And you never eventually get to working on the business. And therefore, the business never gives the owners the outcome that the owners genuinely want and need out of the business. And they end up working 60-hour weeks and not really making enough money. most often we'll see a lot of the clients that come through at the beginning, their employees are sometimes earning more money than them. It doesn't make sense. Why would you do that?
I'm reminded of something that you shared a year ago, Monish. I had asked the question, like, what are the traps that people get stuck in? And you said one of the traps is construction business owners think that they should have a 40-hour-a-week job, that they should be working in the business all the time. And if you believe that you should be busy, that construction is chaos, and that you should be working 40, 50, 60 hours a week full-time in the business, then that's probably what's going to happen if you believe that's what a construction business owner's job is. But if you believe, okay, I want to be a business owner, not a job owner. I want to be a business owner and have a business that works for me. That's a completely different approach and a different posture to setting up your business. And it forces you to say, all right, we can't do just enough to start because I don't want to work in this business every day. I don't want to be busy. I don't believe it's chaotic. There has to be a better way. So we have to find a better way.
It kind of becomes a snowball effect. So, if you go back to this just enough to start and every single job is chaos, then you never have enough time. And I'm using that in quotation marks. You never have enough time to actually set aside time to do this appropriately. So the next job is running into the next one. And now you have to do just enough to start because you're behind. You're always behind. You're always chasing something that you're never going to get because you've not set yourself up for that. It's the focus, right? Like you were just saying, if you believe that that's what it is, you're always going to have that. But if you say, nope, that is not what I want and I'm going to do things differently, this can all be reversed. It's
like the movie Shawshank Redemption, right? They get out of prison and they don't know what to do because they've always been it. And for the business owners, exactly what Leyah just said, like if you've fallen down that just enough to start mentality, you've gradually built this prison around yourself where that's all there is. Like you can't see any other way because you're trapped in that, right? So you have to, for the people that are listening, evaluate whether your business is a prison, whether you want to do that many hours and whether you genuinely do or whether you think that you have to because you just have to be reactive. Like it can't be fun working 40 plus hours in a reactive job.
There's another myth that we just touched on, which sounds right, which is we're going to do this when we have more time. Like, yeah, we're like one more job. We're going to do one more little job. Then we'll be able to get to the big job, or we're going to do this and then we'll be able to get to the next thing. But that's just a continuous cycle. And when you do just enough to start, you don't have time, you don't have bandwidth, you don't have the profit to get to the next thing. And there's this when-then fallacy, like that's people tell themselves, but when you say it out loud, it doesn't make sense, which is when things are less chaotic, then I'll put systems in place to make things less chaotic. When I have more time, then I'll be able to put systems in place. So for the people who are like, okay, I get it. I've got to do something. I've got to get out of this trap. One of the next pitfalls that people step into is saying, all right, I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps. I've always done things myself. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to DIY it, right? I am going to figure out how to get out of this just enough to start trap. I'm going to use trial and error. I'm going to read books, listen to podcasts, go to conferences. I want to DIY this thing and figure out how to do it. I'm going to DIY it. So a lot of people believe with enough time and effort and blood, sweat, tears, and hours of listening to content, they believe they can learn how to do it, learn how to fix things themselves, thinking that they're saving money and saving time. But what we found is many of our clients have come to us after doing that. And what they tell us is trial and error is slow. Trial and error involves mistakes. Mistakes in construction are very expensive and risky. Sometimes those mistakes can be extinction level events that the business doesn't survive. I think we've all probably DIY'd things and would agree that DIYing it is the path of most resistance. It's the opposite of the path of least resistance. It is the path of most resistance. Leyah, you've worked with 170 of our clients now in the SYCB program. What are the problems with the DIY approach? Why doesn't it work?
The reason why DIY does not work, it's expensive and it's costly. You had mentioned all of us have tried to do the DIY route at some point in our lives with something. And every single one of us can also admit that it probably took a lot longer than it needed to. And it probably cost us a lot more money than it needed to. It's just, it doesn't work. If we don't have the competency for what it is that we are seeking to create or to do, it's probably a lot better to find the who and not try to focus so much on the how. I know we did a whole episode on this, so that might be something to take a look at. But that is, it is absolutely a path of resistance every single time.
Hey, it's Todd here. Let me ask you a question. Do you own your construction business, or do you feel like it owns you? Are you spending too much of your time in day-to-day firefighting? Maybe it feels like Groundhog Day, where you're just dealing with the same issues day after day after day. Do you feel like you're always behind? Maybe you feel like you wake up in the morning, you're 2 or 3 hours behind, like you can never get caught up no matter how many hours you put in. Maybe you feel like you're stuck. If you think about it, maybe you started your business to achieve something, to have more freedom, to make more money, but maybe it feels like a trap right now. When it comes to taking time off, taking a vacation, it's kind of a joke because you can't really get away from the business. It's this constant pressure, right? And it's building, it's getting worse, or it hasn't changed in the past few years, and it's wearing you down. So if that's you, I get it. Look, I've been there. Over the past 25 years, I've owned a construction business. I've scaled a construction business up to $11 million in revenue and grew it up to 50 employees. And I also managed over $300 million worth of projects. And over the course of my career, I've worked with some really large contractors, companies doing hundreds of millions, even $1 billion in revenue a year. And on those projects, I figured out that there's this secret phase of every project that the big companies obsess over. And it's where the real profits are made or lost. It's where the schedules are made or lost. And nobody's telling small business owners about it, especially in the residential space. We've created this unique framework to tap into that secret phase. And over the past several years, we've been teaching it to hundreds of construction business owners. And it's been life-changing for a lot of the guys. And you may have heard some of them on the podcast talk about how things are different for them. So this has worked for hundreds of our clients, and I want to share this framework with you in a completely free online training where I'm going to break down the real root cause of why you're stuck in constant firefighting mode. There's a trap that you're likely stuck in. We'll also show you how CEOs of big companies think about scaling a construction business, and I'll also teach you all about that framework so you can tap into that secret phase of every project where profits are made or lost. So if you want to get your hands on that free training, go to constructionleadingedge.com/scale. That's constructionleadingedge.com/SCALE. The way I think about it, it seems like a good idea, right? It's like, well, we can save money by doing this. We don't want to pay people. And I think one of the underlying beliefs is it's bad to spend money, right? Which is crazy for a construction business owner because you spend money all day. But there's this mindset that, well, we only buy materials, we pay for subcontractors, we'll buy a $100,000 truck, but we're not going to spend money on something we don't have to spend money on. So there's this mindset that I hear a lot. I hate to spend money. And that's what keeps people stuck in DIY mode. But the way I think about it, it's sort of like, well, I think, well, an iPhone's so expensive, right? I think I could build my own. I could figure it out. I think I could build my own cell phone. It might take me a couple of years, but I could save. I hate the idea of spending $1,000 or $2,000 for a phone and then paying $150 a month or whatever it is. I hate to spend money, so I'm going to build my own cell phone. So you could do it, maybe, probably not. And then you would spend a couple of years trying to build this thing DIY. Meanwhile, all your competitors paid for the phone and they're out making money doing things that they're good at and that they enjoy and that are profitable. So there's a big opportunity cost to the DIY approach that a lot of people don't think about. It's like, all of that time that you're going to spend figuring this stuff out, DIYing it, you could get these systems in place and go do things you enjoy, do things you're good at, and do things that make you money. Yeah. So let's talk about the next pitfall that I hinted at, which is number 4, which sounds something like, I get it, we need to put the right structure in place, but we're going to wait until we get bigger to put the systems in place. We're too small to do this. So a lot of people think, well, that stuff's only for big companies. They think systems and processes are only necessary once the business reaches a certain point. And that they think, well, if I try to put this stuff in place now, 1, I don't need it. 2, it's just going to slow me down, right? Monish, why doesn't this work? Why doesn't this myth, why is this a pitfall for a lot of small construction businesses?
Well, usually that's what's actually holding you back from growing, because you're in the absence of a proper system, proper procedures, you're 100% relying on individuals. Sometimes when individuals, include yourself as the owner of the business, but you're relying on the efficiency of an individual, the capabilities of an individual, the memory of an individual, because you're basically working out of your own head, right? Sometimes you'll remember something, sometimes you won't. That's just how humans operate. You think that if you just do more, eventually you'll get to a point where your business might be ready to start putting systems and processes in place. The reality is, in essence, you should have had a system before you even built your first project, because it would have shown you how much more is possible in terms of productivity and efficiency just by having simple things like checklists or, recurring tasks and reminders that allow you to then not rely on human memory, not rely on the experience or the competency of a single particular individual, but again, to bake the same cake again and again and again based on a set of instructions. And that's what it is. And like coming back to the DIY thing, it's, if you were to compare it to a client that's come to you and they want a family home built, you've done an estimate, it's $1 million and 10% cost plus on top. And them going, what? Why would I pay you $100,000? I've lived in a house for 50 years. I know everything about houses. So I'm just going to build my own. It's the same mentality. Just because you build projects doesn't mean you know how to build a business, right? Very different set of skills. Just because you've been operating a business for the last 10 years doesn't mean that you know the best way to operate a business. You have to acknowledge that you're probably at the limit of your capabilities. And the only way to accelerate your business is by accelerating your learning. Learn by reading one single book at a time, which takes however long it takes you, or you could go through a course that helps you actually build your business as you're going through the course. It's very practical.
If you're thinking, okay, we need systems, there's probably a reason for that. If you're dealing with chaos, that's a symptom of a systems deficiency. Okay. Your business is telling you you've hit a ceiling of complexity. And there's this myth that, okay, well, if I just do more of what got me here, I can get to the next level. But the reality is what got you here won't get you to the next level. And continuing to try to do more of what got you to where you are is going to keep you stuck. So if you want different results, you have to have different inputs. You have to have different actions. You're going to have to take some different steps, do some different things. You can't just keep banging your head against the wall, doing more of what got you here. And it just doesn't work. And the way I think about this is saying, when we grow, then we'll put systems in place. We're not big enough yet. It's sort of like saying, hey, we're pouring footings for this basement, but I'll tell you what, let's just pour the footings and then we'll leave the rebar out and we'll put the rebar in later on if things start to crack. It's ridiculous, right? One, you can't do that. But that's kind of what you're saying is like, let's build this business. Let's get people's livelihoods, our employees' livelihoods, depending on this business. Let's take a bunch of money. Let's make personal guarantees for ourselves. Let's take customer money. And then let's get to work. Let's get some things going. And then we'll try to put the structure in place to support it. This could be why so many small construction businesses fail in the first 5 years. It's because of some of these things we've talked about, lack of structure, lack of processes. There's actually a study that was done that found the 5 root causes of contractor failure. And one of them is a lack of discipline, a lack of systems and processes. because people think we'll do that, just not now. We don't need that now. Let's do it later.
A knock-on effect of that too is if you're relying on these superstar team members that you've got, excluding yourself, and you don't have a system, a process, and they're gradually getting more and more frustrated, next thing, they're going to jump ship and go to someone else that does have their stuff sorted, because it's just a better environment for them to work in. And they can actually be more successful by being complemented by a system instead of everyone just relying on them.
Chaos in a business is like a self-correcting phenomenon. It's like a governor on an engine. If you have a certain level of chaos, you'll never grow beyond that certain point because of the profit bleeds could put you out of business. People will leave, your employees will leave and go work somewhere else because of the chaos and the stress. The reputation gets tarnished and you don't get referrals, and you may struggle to sell work because your reputation is taking a hit. Subcontractors won't send their A teams out. Maybe they won't even price your work. And then the business shrinks down to a manageable level of chaos. That's why I call it this self-correcting phenomenon. And a lot of people just keep going through these cycles of we're going to grow and then shrink, grow, shrink. And it's because they don't put the systems in place to sustain that growth. A couple more we want to touch on here. One, I just want to spend a couple of minutes on and then get to the last one. One strategy we've seen is people they'll find a general business coaching program that's just about business. It could be like a Vistage group. Nothing against Vistage. It could be some sort of mastermind. It could be a general business coach. And people will say, look, construction's just like every other business. And there are elements of that are true, but there are a lot of nuances in construction that don't exist in any other business. So what they find is they get some general business advice that doesn't actually solve the problem. It doesn't get to the root cause of their problems. And they end up being frustrated. And we've actually had quite a few people come to us after working with a generic business coach, or even working with some more general construction coaching programs that don't get into putting systems in place. They'll say things like, just focus on leads and marketing, lead generation and marketing, or work on your website, or you just need more relationships with architects, things like that. So just be careful. Definitely get coaching. Just make sure that they're delivering what you're looking for. So this is the last one I want to talk about. This is a very common pitfall that people get stuck into, which is they decide, okay, we're going to scale our business. We need to take it to this next level. They get some clarity on what the next level is. And then they design their business around people. And they look at the people that they're working with and think, how can I make it work with these people? Or they think, I can't make it work with these people. So there are two fundamentally different approaches to scaling a business. One is that approach, which is to say, okay, this is who we have. Let's take a look at the people we have in our business now, and let's design a business based around their limitations, around Steve's certain abilities and the things he likes to do and the things he doesn't like to do, and then around Heather's unique abilities and eccentricities, and designing a business around the people you currently have in the building. And the problem with that is you end up with these single points of failure. You have these parts and pieces that are very difficult to replace because you have to find another Heather and you have to find another Steve. And a lot of people just think, well, this is what I have to do. And I have to design my business around these people instead of designing a business based on what the desired outcome is. Leyah, what sort of problems can people expect, or maybe they're already dealing with, if they're trying to make it work by designing their business around people? What do you think?
I think there's a couple of things. Either they have someone who might be a unicorn, for lack of a better term. They have so many different skills. And so they create a role for that person. But what happens if something happens to that person? What if they decide to leave? Now you're stuck trying to recreate a unicorn situation, and you're not going to find it. It's going to be very difficult to find that. So we see that scenario. That's pretty common, I think. And then the other thing is, if you're just kind of throwing stuff out and being like, okay, we've got these 4 or 5 people, let's just divide it. Well, you do this, and then you do this, and you do this. Those people may not be suited for those types of things, or they may not like those types of things. So you're just kind of shooting darts in the dark, seeing what will stick and hoping that it works out. People resent that. No one wants to do something that they are not suited to do, or that they don't enjoy it. Maybe it's not one of their strengths. And now it's something that they have to do every single day. That's not going to work. It's not going to turn out well for really anyone in the business. So, I think it's kind of those 2 different scenarios, probably more. But those are pretty common ones that we see with clients coming in, and it really doesn't work. What does work is designing your business for what your business needs, and then finding the right people to fill those spots.
Yeah. You bring up a good point. I've seen this a lot where it's like, okay, the boss is task saturating people. And this week, Steve's doing this. Next week, Heather's doing it. 2 weeks from now, they both might be doing it. 1 week, nobody's doing it. And it's this moving target where the owner is like, I just have to tell my people what to do. And it changes. And it's very confusing for people. It's frustrating, as you said, for people to do things they're not good at, they don't like. But it's also really frustrating when there's a moving target. And what happens is people end up duplicating efforts, stepping on each other's toes, thinking, well, why did you order that? I just ordered that. Or nobody does it. Or
no one does it.
Yeah, it's like, who ordered the windows? Well, you did last time. That's an 8-week lead time. And they're supposed to be here next week. And there's just finger pointing. So, not having a structure or a loose structure or something that changes all the time, just a recipe for disaster. What do you think, Monish? Why doesn't this approach of designing the business around people, why doesn't it work?
What happens if those people leave? For a variety of reasons. What happens if Steve and Heather were driving to a project and they were in a car crash and they both died? Steve and Heather are made up people, so I can say that freely. But what happens in that circumstance? You then hire someone that is as close to Steve and Heather as possible and hope that the business continues as it has. And how long is that going to take? What are the chances of that happening? Even people that have built a business around themselves. What happens if you were to genuinely ask yourself, whether it's you or another key player that the business is built around, how long can you or that person take time off the business completely? Like no phone calls, nothing. Is it 4 weeks? Is it a week? Is it a day? Is it half a day? And if that window is very, very small, you need to really think about, all right, you're putting all your eggs in this one basket. And at some point, what happens if you drop that basket?
You're having to micromanage a lot if you have that approach. You're divvying things out. You're expecting things to happen. It goes back to that chaos again, right? People are not taking ownership for their role because they don't know what their role is. And they're leaning on you quite a bit. It just sounds exhausting all the way around for everybody involved. That's just another angle on that to consider as well.
I've been in this situation. I've worked in a situation like this where there was no structure. And it's great for people who don't like accountability. It's great for people who want to hide, people who are C and D players, because they can just float along and make excuses and point fingers. And it fosters that kind of environment. And high performers hate it. They're repelled by that situation, and they want nothing more than to leave because they like accountability. We actually had a group call today, and a couple of our members were saying, after putting the nail the handoff process in place and getting their accountability chart in place, they said their people are excited. Not the owners are excited, but their team is excited because they're delegating to them and they have accountability and they know what winning looks like. That's what A players want. So designing your business around people, around unicorns is very difficult. And what works a lot better is think about what you want your business to look like, and then design it that way. Designing it around people is sort of like, from a construction standpoint, it would be like saying, hey, I want you to build $1 million custom home for me. And you said, okay, well, we're going to go to the local Home Depot, and we're just going to use what's there. If they don't have it, we're not going to use it. So whatever we can buy at Home Depot, that's what's available. Or maybe in some cases, it's like a salvage yard. You're going to like the used surplus material yard and using things like that in some cases based on the quality of team. But the thing is, you get to choose, all right? You're the business owner. You get to choose what you want your business to look like, and it's up to you, right? So this requires you to believe that you can get in the driver's seat and design your business to run the way you want it to run, instead of just being in the passenger seat, along for the ride, just looking over like, well, these people, they won't perform, and these projects and these customers, and bitching and complaining about things when you actually have some control over it. So I think one of the underlying beliefs here is I got to do the best I can with what I've got. And there's nothing I can do about it. This is my lot in life, and it's my destiny to just have a mediocre business. And it doesn't have to be that way. It definitely doesn't have to be that way. All right. So let's wrap this up. Leyah, anything else you would add to this conversation about pitfalls to avoid? Maybe if there's anything else, other pitfalls that we need to throw out there, or anything else you want to add about the things we've talked about?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
You bet. Monish, how about you?
I think I'd encourage everyone to do that exercise, to look at, all right, how long can I realistically take off from the business? And if it's a day or less, it's a pretty emergency type situation there.
All right. Well, Leyah, Monish, thanks for taking the time to be on here. And more importantly, thanks for all the great work you guys are doing and the results you're getting for our clients, many of whom have been on this podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast or watching this and you've heard our clients talk about their success stories, like Mikhail Ganaj talking about how his business runs 95% without him, if you've heard our SYCB clients, if you've heard our CEO Alliance members, it's because of the work that they've done with Leyah and Monish and the coaching they've gotten and the support they've gotten. So thank you all for the work you're doing. And for those of you listening, stick around. We've got some other things to share with you before we go. Hey, it's Todd here. One last thing. Before you go, let me ask you something. Do you find yourself constantly putting out fires that never should have started in the first place? Are you working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, but you just feel like you're barely keeping your head above water? Maybe you're spending too much of your time in low-level firefighting type activities. Maybe every problem lands in your lap and you're thinking, how can I possibly keep up with all of this chaos, much less grow this thing? Or maybe you're thinking, why would I want to grow this business? So if you're a construction business owner and you feel trapped in your business, feel like it's keeping you from being present with your family, maybe you even feel like your business is driving a wedge between you and your spouse or you and your family, and you can't take a real vacation, there's constant chaos, then let me tell you, there's a way out, all right? My team has helped hundreds of construction business owners solve those exact problems. And the first step that all of our clients took was to schedule a call with my team. So I want to invite you to schedule a call with my team. And on that call, you're going to get crystal clear on three things. Number one, the real root cause of some of the biggest problems in your business. Number two, your goals and outcomes that you want to achieve. Number three, you'll have a clear roadmap that you can follow to turn those goals and outcomes into a reality. All right. So for a lot of the people who've had these calls, it's been the best hour they've spent working on their business in a long, long time, maybe ever. So here's the deal. This year is going to be over before you know it. So my question for you is, are you going to have another year of almosts? Are you going to have another year of almost hitting your goals, almost making changes, almost getting there? Or is it going to be another year of maybe going backwards, going in the wrong direction? Here's the deal. If you want different results, you need to take different actions, okay? You need to make some different decisions. This stuff is not going to randomly happen. Your business is not going to magically fix itself. It's going to get worse on its own, okay? So if you want different results, you've got to make some different decisions. You've got to take some different actions. So if that's you, If you want to take some different actions, you want some help, then book a call with my team by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply. Don't wait till it's too late. All right. Unfortunately, we occasionally talk to people and we figure out it's too late for us to help. So you know you need to make some changes in your business. Maybe you're a little scared, you're not sure how it's going to work out, but you know you need to make some changes. You've got to do something different. Then go schedule your call if you're a construction business owner by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY, and book your call. We'll talk soon.